Well, there was somebody working there, he got sick, so he was doing a good job. We ran an ad for 2 weeks and didn't get any takers, so.
I was thinking about that guy.
That's close to you, probably requires maybe bad time of the year, about 3 hours, you know. You can kind of set your own hours, work 6 hours one day and maybe no hours the next.
So it looks like we have a quorum. Kara said she was double booked, she had another meeting. So I'm just gonna tell her she doesn't come. I guess she's assuming,
Mr. Kleinschmidt, is he coming or?
but I haven't heard otherwise, no.
He'll probably be here.
That's what we should do.
Oh, yeah, holy cow. He's lucky to be alive.
Yeah, who's this?
Dave Noble, foreman down there, Little Falls Machine.
Yeah, what happened?
Coming to work last Tuesday, I think it was. They were still working early shift, so he was coming in about 5:30 in the morning, and right there by Tri-City Paving, cement truck came out without stopping, and he was on a motorcycle.
Oh, no.
Later down, slid right into the tandems, and both legs all busted up, cracked hip.
Oh, my gosh.
That's bad, but he had no helmet on, but no head injuries, no internal injuries.
Wow.
So they went the waist down.
Yeah.
He'll be in a wheelchair and then for a while.
For a while, yeah.
Is that Gene's brother?
Yeah, Gene Junior's,
His,
Oh,
what's
He's
his
got
name?
like
Freddie.
12 or 13 brothers and
Yeah,
sisters.
Freddie got killed right out by the Holdingford High School.
Yep.
In a 20-mile-an-hour zone. Somebody ran a stop sign and.
No, he's lucky. He says then the driver came out. He never lost consciousness.
Yeah.
The driver came out and Dave says, call 911. The driver didn't move. He says, call 911. The driver still didn't move. Call 911. So they finally got the guy to call 911, and the bike is still running, and it's leaking gas and petrol. And so everything's on top of him yet. He can't move. He says, turn the bike off. Turn the bike off. And tell him how to come and turn the bike off. The guy was apparently just all flustered. I guess I'd be flustered too.
That's funny what some people can put up with. There was a, by Northbury, Minnesota, comm, he was out in the field and he got his arm, literally,
Oh,
arm and leg ripped off. Someone got tangled up. Never passed out or anything. He pulled himself out of that field, got to his truck, drove himself to the neighbors and told them to take him to the hospital. I went there. It's over.
yeah. Yeah,
6:30.
yes.
We have a quorum. We'll call this meeting to order. Entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. No old business. We have a public hearing here. Jumping ahead a little bit. Let's call this public hearing to order at 6:31. It's to amend the city code. I'll let Ben take care of that. He can explain everything.
Okay. I'm going to put on the screen here. We have three basic amendments to the ordinance that are proposed. One that we talked about last time that has to do with the maximum size of buildings for lots based on their lot size. We have another one that is kind of a legal thing that has to do with a change to Minnesota statute several years back that does not allow for what's called amortization, which means taking a non-conforming structure and saying you have so many years to continue having it, and then it's gonna go. That was made illegal in most cases several years back by the state, and so we want to take that part out of our ordinance. And then the third part has to do with interim use permits, and this is something that we talked about possibly having with these fences that would be in the site triangles, or closer to intersections, and we decided against using that. So the only reason for discussing that part of it tonight is if we want to put that into the ordinance so that it's authorized. If we decide that we want to use it for some other kind of use, I can go over some cases where you might think that makes sense. But it's nothing urgent, and so if we decide that it's not something you want to jump on right away, we can just kind of discuss it, get our hands around it a little bit, and then decide later if we want to do it. Those are the three basic changes that we could have proposed.
Okay, anyone in the audience have anything to say on this issue?
Yeah, actually I do. Somewhere in this paperwork it talked about that if this is passed, non-conforming billboards or signs will be now legal. Is that correct?
Can you answer that?
You answer that.
No, that the sign ordinance, the section of the city code that addresses signs has its own section about non-conforming signs. So we felt like this was duplicative to have it here, and so we just took it out. So in that, we're not discussing that section, but in that section, it does talk about what happens with non-conforming signs.
Maybe it was in the
one of
packet that I
actually,
saw
that was one
that.
of the reasons, sorry?
Maybe it was in the packet that I saw that. I remember reading that. In the last city council packet, maybe?
Oh, that could have been for the previous ordinance, but that incidentally is one of the reasons that the state made this amortization illegal. I think, as I understand it, was because there were some complaints about cities forcing billboard companies to get rid of signs and things like that. So, with a couple exceptions, pretty much everything cannot be handle that way. You can't force somebody to get rid of something after a certain time just because it wasn't put up, or just because it doesn't meet any standards. So.
Can you clarify one more time for myself as well as for the viewing audience that will possibly view this online about this 25-foot distance from some portion of an intersection changing to 10 feet? Is that part of what's happening tonight? Or did that get
No.
passed on Monday night or Tuesday of this week?
That was recommended to the council, and the council had its first reading, and so that's entirely with the council. That's not
Okay.
part of what we're discussing tonight, no.
Okay, but you mentioned something about the 25-foot. In your lead up here, you said something about that.
Oh, that was in relation to the proposed changes to allow for interim uses. When we had discussed that 25-foot site triangle area, we had talked about possibly allowing certain fences to be closer if they obtained an interim use permit. But in your recommendation to the council, you didn't proceed that way. You said it was just 25 feet or 10 feet based on whether it was controlled or uncontrolled intersection, and then there was no option to go closer outside of a variance. And so we ended up not needing that interim use language to allow for that. We had it prepared, or planning to put it on for tonight's agenda in case that happened. It didn't, and so, like I say, whenever you want me to, I can go over the reasons sometimes why you might want an interim use permit to be for certain uses. But no, we're not talking about the 25-foot area specifically tonight.
I have one other question, and that is, what's the reason for the 3 years in this ordinance change?
It was 3 years, we've taken it 3 years out, right, the 36 month?
Yeah, which section is that the section you're referring to?
I don't know, I read it before I came here.
I think we weren't right into public hearings,
There
Yeah,
was
ceased within
reference
a 36-month period.
Yeah, I think that was the only reference to 3 years was current ordinance says that certain non-conforming uses and structures have to be removed within 36 months. And we can't do that now by state law, so we're taking that section out.
Oh, it's in this. It says, certain legal non-conforming uses and structures be ceased within a 36-month time period
Right.
to amend size limits related to detached accessory buildings. So,
That's going away.
Oh. okay.
It hasn't been enforced ever since the state changed the law. There's no reason for it to be in there because the state doesn't allow it. So.
And is this primarily so that people in the newly annexed area north of town here that have bigger lots can put up larger buildings? Is that kind of what this is for?
You're referring to a different section now, so that would be a section on accessory buildings. I wouldn't say that it's specifically for that area, although it might apply more often in those areas. But yes,
Right.
generally whoever has larger lots will get more building.
Okay.
You're looking at more, if they have enough area to, so the water can soak into the ground, maybe allow them to have a little bit bigger building. Pretty much what the discussion was about. On the wall and on the little surfaces.
Mr. Chair, I think this is where this initiated from, is the guy that wanted to build his garage over here that we told to hang on to while we looked at this, so that wasn't anything to do with a large lot.
lot.
I think, but I'm not sure, Ben, was something you were thinking about just before he even came in, wasn't it?
Well, to some extent, yes. I mean, this section that we're dealing with tonight wouldn't directly apply to his situation, actually. What we were dealing with there was more what we've already dealt with last month and passed on to the council about, that had to do with, because he had a small non-conforming lot, he couldn't add or cover more of his lot than the average of the surrounding neighborhood.
Yeah, that was the permanent, non-permeable and non-permeable.
That was the primary reason why it was an issue to try and give him a conditional use permit that he applied for. So we dealt with that separately. This has more to do with the fact that every lot in the city has a 1,400 square foot limit for accessory buildings, detached accessory buildings, whether they're one building or 5 buildings, in total it can't be more than 1,400. And that, we still feel like that's probably appropriate for the smaller lots that are in the historical downtown area, historical city area, but for anybody who has a larger lot, which primarily would be in the more recently annexed areas, the question is that too restrictive? I did some checking with what the county had been allowing for accessory building limits in those areas prior to their being annexed, and it ranged up to 3,000 square feet. They kind of had some initial 1,000 square foot limits in certain cases, but if you moved your building further from the back lot line, then they would allow you to go up to 3,000 square feet. And you didn't have to move it in a whole lot from the back lot line, so.
The only people within the historic Little Falls would be people who maybe have 2 lots side by side, or maybe they might be able to put up, say for instance, a 1,600 square foot structure,
Right.
which there aren't that many. There's a few, but not too many.
So you can see in your chart there, in section D under accessory buildings. And this is all for discussion, I think, when I was talking with Greg Kimmon about some of this, I think we had some different thoughts even amongst ourselves and wanted your input. So what it says is no single accessory building can exceed 1,400 square feet, so that 1,400 square foot still applies to any single building. So if we were to adopt it the way it's written, it still wouldn't allow for somebody to have a big, 40 by 60 building or something like that anywhere in the city. And so that's our first point of discussion. And then this chart that we added is the maximum for the combined floor area if you have multiple detached accessory structures. So if you've got a relatively small 0 to 12,000 square foot lot, would still be the same as it is today, 1,400 square feet, whether it's one building or 5 buildings. That's your limit. When you get up to larger than 12,000 square feet, up to a half acre, then your total maximum combined can go up to 1,800 square feet. From a half acre to an acre, it becomes 2,400 square feet, and then greater than an acre is 3,000 square feet. And those are numbers that we can discuss whether you think those make sense or not.
So that wouldn't apply to a non-conforming lot. There you'd have to do a percentage that kind of fits everyone in town. Instead of going by just by the neighbors, do something that kind of affects everybody in the same way. Because you were talking about, sometimes it's really hard to go and check every neighbor's house, how much they,
Yeah, we
permeable
wouldn't-
and non-permeable surface they have, and then apply it to a person that's trying to put up a structure.
Right, so if the council passes what was recommended to them by yourselves at the last meeting, that whole analysis of the neighborhood would go away.
Okay. And it'd just be an ordinance that applies to everybody in town with a non-conforming lot, would have to meet the specifications that are laid out. Okay.
Right, it'd make it more similar from non-conforming lots to conforming lots. The same rules would apply. The only thing different about a non-conforming lot is that they would have to get a conditional use permit to add on a new accessory building or to make a larger accessory building or a larger house. And in that analysis, they would still have to meet setbacks just like everybody else. They would be subject to the same overall impervious coverage limits on their lot, which we changed or recommended changing to scale up based on your lot size, what that limit would be. And then they would have to meet these requirements if we pass these, recommend pass these council may do so. So in the applicant we had a couple months ago, in his case, just like before, he was limited to 1,400 square feet for his detached accessory buildings. That really wouldn't change for him. The thing that changed for him and for other people like him would be that rather than us looking at the neighborhood and comparing impervious coverages to the neighborhood, we would just compare it to the 33% limit that we would have in the ordinance if the council passes that.
So actually, it might not benefit him at all.
This tonight probably won't, it won't benefit him at all.
Yeah,
The
okay.
benefit to him would come from what we recommended last time.
See, the reason why I stated that is, I just want to make sure we're not just trying to change some ordinance to meet one person's expectations, like Jeremy was saying.
Well, we ain't changing just for Belpre annexation, there's all kinds of lots around town that are bigger than 1,200 square feet, so if we're trying to push it on Belpre, it ain't Belpre, that's the point I'm trying to get across.
No, I agree with you. That's what I was trying to say. Otherwise, it could look like we're trying to change this to fit this guy's expectations, but we're not. We're trying to make something here that's fair for everybody, and that's, it governs everybody equally, so.
There's many lots that would be affected by this. We're just trying to come up with something that I think hopefully makes more sense and reflects what you and the council and the public want.
Robin, do you have any more items you want to bring up here?
No, thank you.
Being as there's no one else out there, I'll close the public hearing at this time, 6:45. And open it up to discussion amongst the commission here.
I thought we were looking at a percentage-based scale versus the cut where, if you're at 21,780, you can have 1,800, but you get one more square foot, and then you can have 600 more square feet of building. And
We talked about that, yeah. And I think that was sort of the general direction. When I started looking at that, it seemed to create a little bit strange of an outcome, I guess.
Okay.
And so like if you were to say, somebody with a 15,000 square foot lot, or I guess we'll start at 12,000 since that's kind of our cutoff. It's 1,400 square feet, and then for every square foot above that, you get another whatever square foot, so then somebody with 12,000 gets, 1,400 square feet, somebody with 13,000 gets 1,349 square feet, and then somebody that has another couple square feet on their lot gets another couple square feet of building. It just seemed to create kind of a strange outcome, in the sense where somebody gets 1,348 square feet and somebody gets 1,350 square feet.
It would be hard to manage.
It just feels a little bit strange and hard to manage, I think. Now, that said, it does allow for a finer grain to how we do this. I mean, these are just kind of jumping up by several hundred square feet each time. And you have situations where, say for instance, somebody that was just under 1 acre is going to get 2,400 square feet, and somebody just above a half acre is going to get 2,400 square feet.
But these are combined, with any single building having 1,400 square feet.
Yeah.
Which I don't care for.
Yeah, I thought we talked
I
about
think-
doing away with that limit and making it a limit based on the scale per building.
Yeah, I was thinking that larger acreage meant larger
Larger
single
min.
buildings.
Single buildings. That was actually one of the areas where Greg and I were kind of discussing this, and I think we were, not that we were disagreeing, but we just had.
If you take an acre, with the numbers you got here, if you take an acre lot, that's a 40 by 60 bull shed. Well, an acre, that's a half a block. So, you have a 40 by 60, that's no taller than your house.
Yeah, I
And the
think,
largest would be a 50 by 60, well, all your motorhomes are 50 feet long.
But we have,
You know,
don't we have regulations that say that these buildings cannot be over a given height, so it wouldn't be higher than the
18 feet
house?
max, right, and that's what it still is, no taller than your primary structure. So it's not like you can build a 2-story chicken barn, right here, you'd be a 50 by 60 on a 1 acre lot or larger. So a half a city block is an acre, correct?
Roughly.
I think so.
Well, 15,000 square feet is about a third of an acre. 45,000
Yeah,
square
it
feet
is
is
about-
roughly an acre, right?
43,560 is an acre.
Yeah.
Seems kind of silly to have to build 2 buildings rather than just put up 1.
Right,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it does.
To me too.
put 5 feet between them and
Yeah.
trade cars between the doors so you can pull something longer or bigger in between them.
All that rigmarole, It seems like,
Yeah, I think the first version of this that I drafted up got rid of the limit on the single. And then,
Would it make any sense to say, perhaps stay with these square foot floor areas, but that they be either single building or combined?
I just think we eliminate the maximum of 1,400 square feet
First thing.
If
per
you
single dwelling.
If you didn't want a limit on the single accessory building, we would probably just eliminate the first sentence there, basically. And instead say in residential districts, the maximum combined floor area.
I'd be more apt to say a limit of number of accessory structures, so you got 15
Yeah.
8 by
I think
10 yard
one-
sheds lined up across your backyard.
Yeah, one big structure is more appealing than 4 little ones. If you're looking, well, not that I'd be looking at a house on an acre in town, but I mean, if it had 4 small garages on it, it wouldn't be as appealing to buy and or sell that. If it had a house in one nice large garage, it could store your motorhome or whatever.
So I've seen some ordinances that limit it to two detached accessory buildings. You can go 3 or 4 too.
Well, I think, I kind of like the way the maximum size of the building can be 3,000 feet. If they choose to have a smaller one, maybe they could put up 2 of them, like a 1,600 and a 1,400 in your 1 acre area, but at least give them the option to have a 3,000 square foot building. That's the purpose of having more land. You can have a little bit bigger building.
Yeah, I agree.
And, but in a residential area where you have 12,000 square feet or smaller, you cannot have a building that's larger than 1,400 feet or 2,700 or
Yeah.
3, whatever.
Yeah, I think that making the maximum instead of having 1,400 foot limit. That's gonna keep the accessory buildings proportionate to the lot size.
Absolutely. The only exception I would see for if you have a strange lot where you want to have two buildings, you know.
Yeah, then they still have the
And
choice.
then they have that option, of
Yep.
course, which is what it should be about.
Or if they wanna build a 2-car garage and a 3-car garage instead of
Absolutely.
one big garage.
Maybe on a corner, it just doesn't make sense to have one building.
Yeah. Yeah, it's less restrictive in the end.
Yes.
Does that make sense to you, Ben?
Yeah, just filling Greg in here. Like I said, we had some discussions a little bit back and forth about this. I don't know if you have time to jump on here, but if you have thoughts about limiting the size of any one accessory building, what they're talking about here.
Get rid of the maximum 1,400 square feet per building.
Only to be somewhat consistent with the county. I think right now the county has 1,000 square feet and 3,000 square feet are the two numbers that they have, depending on how close it is to the property line. We had 1,400 square feet for accessory structures in the past. I mean, either way, it's what you ultimately want to have for a size limit. 1,400 is a big building, 3,000 is obviously a much bigger building, but it's whatever you're comfortable with seeing in terms of.
So in the county, they have a limit.
They do, yes.
So I have 80 acres in the county, they're gonna let me put up a 1,000 square foot building?
3,000, I think, is what they've got for one.
It depends on
It
the
depends on your
zoning
zoning.
district. area. Yeah, but,
Yeah, because if you're zoned agricultural, that changes it completely versus urban fringe and some of their other zoning areas.
you know, their shoreland areas, they're more, the smaller lot areas were more restricted than for, I think out in the egg districts, it wasn't as limited. You know, just generally speaking, when communities I'm in want to limit the size of any one building, their arguments are usually because of, it will start to look out of character with the neighborhood. I work in one community where somebody put up a fairly large garage. I think it was 30 by 40 or something like that, or maybe 40 by 60. Yeah, it was amazing. The neighbors came out and were like, what's going on here? I thought we had a limit on this, and they should be able to do this. It looks terrible up there. So that's usually the reasons that come up. Whether that's a valid reason or not, I guess is up to you guys. But usually that's what it comes down to. Because outside of that, we do have the limits on impervious coverage, so we're taking care of that issue. We have limits on height, and so that takes care of blocking views and sunlight and all those kinds of things. So I think it really just comes down to kind of the aesthetic feel of the neighborhood.
I don't know, looking at this, a half an acre with a 1,800 square foot building doesn't offend me. And the 2,400 square foot on an acre, and then if you have greater than an acre, a 3,000 square foot building, isn't that unsightly? That's a lot of property, you know, so.
And what that would mean, if somebody actually built a 3,000 square foot building on an acre, they wouldn't be allowed to have a little 10 by 12 garden shed in addition to that.
That's
what this
right.
would be, because that's combined, and so they'd have to be thinking of that, and we'd have to try to make them aware of that, and then as they came in from the neighborhood, and just say, this is gonna be it. So, a lot of times people are trying to consolidate the smaller structures into one larger one anyway, so it's probably not gonna be a huge deal. They come in and they say, oh, I just want a little 4x6 shed for my lawnmower or something, and we have to say no. And that's fine, that's what we have to say.
You handle Alexandria, don't you?
The Alexandria Township.
Okay, you're familiar with the place, it's just out of town, or maybe it's even in town where they have all these, big metal structures. People who can have a bigger garage,
Oh,
They have all these, it's like a community, you go out there and everybody opens up their doors and they have their shops, or they have two shops, and they're fairly large buildings. How do they regulate that?
Those are, they're one of two setups usually. One is, it's the traditional sort of rental mini storage. So it's one owner, we own the whole building, they rent out individual storage units to whoever. What we did start to see around that area more often was ones where they actually create lots around each unit, and you buy your lot and your unit and you own it. And then you're part of an association that manages the rest
What's
of the
an
grounds around it.
association?
So that's probably more the community feel that you're going to want to see.
I went out there on a Saturday and one guy owned two of these big buildings and he had a lot of money, so he had some really nice cars in there. On a Saturday, everyone has their garage doors open, they're working on their cars and everything. It's a big community, but.
Those are regulated differently than just a single landowner.
And that's
with a regular
in
lot.
the town, Alexandria itself.
Most of those that I'm aware of are out in the county, in one of the townships. Trying to think if there's any actually in the city. Can't think of. Yeah, there's several of those kind of all directions from town. There's one or two of those units.
That way, if you want to live in town and still have your nice big shop, you can join that group and purchase a building, and there you go.
I think a lot of the demand for that comes from lakeshore owners with relatively small lots.
Okay.
Or contractors or people that just have things to store. Right. So like I said, I mean, these numbers are all up for discussion. If you think we should be using a different number on any of those, you know, we maxed it out at 3,000 because that's what the county did.
I think that's a good idea. Everyone else.
Should it fit setbacks though? To increase the setbacks?
It was for increasing the setbacks. We don't have that same requirement. And actually, I should say that I don't think the county limited the combined square footage so much as just the single building. So if you wanted, you know, 3,000 square foot buildings and you had enough space in your lot to do it, they would allow you to do that. So we're being more restrictive in that sense.
I would think our impervious coverage requirement would cover some of that, wouldn't it?
At some point, yeah. I mean, if you got an acre and you're limited to 30, well, it's even more than 33%, but so you get up to 40% of an acre.
Well, the impervious coverage is well less than an acre.
And the percentage goes down as the lot size
Yeah,
goes up.
it was like 20% at an acre.
All right, so say you take a quarter of an acre, a third of an acre, well, a third of an acre would be about 15,000 square feet. So, you know,
Including
you're talking about,
driveway and a house and.
yeah, 11, 12, 13,000 square feet that you get on an acre total. You got a 3,000 square foot house and a 3,000 square foot garage, shed.
Basketball court, whatever else.
Or your driveways, you know. It all depends on how people are gonna lay out their lot, which driveway they want. I would imagine that if you have an acre, you're gonna be able to do, if we allow it, you would be able to do more than 3,000 square foot accessory building. You're not going to.
I think 3,000 square foot in a community is plenty.
I mean, we could add a fifth category here, I guess it would be. You know, if you had more than 5 acres or 10 acres, then we don't limit it. I don't know that there's that many lots out there like that, but,
There's only a couple.
you know,
Impervious is one, I don't know if there's any on the west side.
What is the school district up there?
But that, these are for residential.
Right. That could be a residential development one day, if they wanted to.
Within the lot sizes would be reduced. Likely.
Yeah, it's pretty unlikely that one person's gonna buy the property and the house.
I'd be surprised. Some contractor come in, build a new shed, and something like that.
it might not be a bad idea to add that.
Corner, but it's still got a 3,000 square foot over there. if there's
I
only-
think on the west side, Brian Crowder's probably the only one that has enough acreage there,
but that's industrial.
that's industrial, okay.
Just those areas northeast of Walmart.
Northeast of Walmart, that's industrial.
Any other discussion on this item?
One other thing to note, this may impact some property owners to potentially sell. Say somebody has an acre of land, puts up the max impervious and the max square footage, then the following year they want to subdivide the property, they wouldn't be able to because then they'd be out of compliance with the impervious coverage and accessory structure. So we'll have to make them aware of that when they come and build it, but that could have an impact down the road.
Anything else?
So are we thinking that we would send to the council the language as proposed with the exception that we would drop the first sentence under D3, which limits the size of building to 14, and just say that any building or combined space? That's what we're talking about, right?
I think that's what we do. We want to keep the first phrase in all residential districts. So we'd say in all residential districts, the maximum combined floor area and the rest of it.
Yep.
Somebody talked briefly about limiting the number of buildings, so they couldn't have 12 buildings up on their lot. That's not in here, so if you want that, we can do that.
Or else they could put up a puppy pound right in town, not puppy mill.
That would, yeah, that would be regulated differently, isn't it?
Chicken coops. Back here with chicken coops.
Oh, that can go.
And if we pass this on, are we also passing to the council the language authorizing interim uses?
Yeah, we haven't really discussed that yet. An interim use, again, is very similar to a conditional use permit, except that it has a time limit on it. They're essentially the same thing, except there's a time limit for it. The ways that I've seen this used in other communities is, if you can think of any use that you want to say, it's okay now, but maybe the zoning's gonna change in the future, and what happens around it is gonna change in the future. And so at some point in the future, it may be something that we're not so excited about. And so it's hard to do it for things that require large investments. So if somebody's gonna put up a large building, and then 10 years later, you're gonna say, oh, I'm sorry, you can't do that here anymore. That's probably not the best case to use it. Gravel pits, we don't yet allow those in the city, but in township and county areas, gravel pits are an interim use a lot of times. You're allowed to take gravel out, and then when it's done, you're done. Certain businesses, like home occupations, or certain businesses that might be allowed in a residential setting, or might be allowed in a more agricultural, larger lot setting now, but as the zoning changes and more development happens around it, now you don't want that auto repair business there because of the noise and everything. So it gives you a chance to say, we're allowing you to do this, but we're also sort of reserving the right to say at some point, there's some good reason why we don't want it there anymore.
Doesn't that contradict the amortization law?
Well, not according, apparently not by state law, because they allow for the interim uses. I think they're different in the sense that you're telling somebody up front with an interim use permit, you're going through a process of public hearing. You're saying, yes, we will allow this, just like a conditional use permit, but it's going to be good for X number of years. And then you've got to come in, you can reapply for it to be renewed, and you can grant it to be renewed. So like I say, the pressure is kind of off to do this at this point because we had something in mind for it with the fences and we decided not to go that route. So if you want to take more time to think about it, we can sure do that. I
Should
don't
be
want to say,
the Milkies out there, we annexed them in, they didn't have box deeds. Tell them they got 3 years to get it up to, they gotta take the shed down. That's where the amortization comes in. Versus this, somebody comes in, wants a permit to put a fence up, tell them, yeah, you can do it, but it might have to come down this is why.
So it gets rid of any kind of grandfather clause, like you put up a building or something and it won't be grandfathered in if it's under this interim.
Grandfather only applies if it was compliant when it was put up.
Yeah, okay.
So, what my fear is, if we do an interim use permit, say the time frame is 5 years, it gets renewed for another 5 years, how long does somebody usually own a home? You know, at some point, that house is going to get sold, and the translation between the interim use from the original applicant to the next person is gonna get lost. And then we have to track who has it and say, you know, now it's out of compliance, or now it's no longer, and you gotta be the one to say, you have to take it down. The previous owner was told it's gonna have to come down in 5 years, but you're the one that's gonna have to pay to take it down.
Wouldn't that information be available to buyers and sellers at closings?
Usually it is, but, and yes, but a lot of times people at closings don't understand a lot of that information. You know, we get that same thing with easements going across property for utility easements. They don't understand a lot of the details that are presented to them at the closings.
That's why I say, you know, I don't think this is the best thing to use if somebody's putting up a large investment in terms of a building. It doesn't, just because an interim use expires doesn't mean that the building has to necessarily come down, but it kind of creates that potential problem. So, you know, in the case of like a home business, if you're,
I think scratch it for now.
Yeah, there's nothing saying that we have to grant any kind of interim use permit.
even if you adopted it, it wouldn't have really any effect at this point, because you'd have to go back in later and say, okay, now we're classifying this as an interim use at that point. So, but like I say, the pressure's off, so we certainly don't have to do it. It's
Just keep the mud out of the water and
it prevents, when it's used, I think, in its best way, it prevents something from becoming grandfathered in forever. You know, so once you grant somebody the opportunity to do that out of a repair shop or the property, as long as they or future owners continue to abide by it, they can do it. At some point, things grow up around them, and maybe you say, boy, that's not the best thing for that area now, let's track it from the neighborhood value.
so can they go back to say, oh, you're taking their livelihood and stuff away too?
Yeah, it gets sticky that way too. I mean, you can always take it away if they're not meeting their conditions,
Right.
which is not simple folks either, but.
I was, at our last city council meeting, some of these issues were brought up because the council was totally confused on what was going on. Is there a better way of informing them ahead of time, or could we wait maybe 2 meetings, like introduce it at one meeting and then wait for another meeting or something, because,
Well, that's how we did it. The record had it wrong saying it would pass it because it was just introduced.
It's just introduction, yeah.
So
Yeah.
nothing was passed, it's introduced, and then they got the time to go over it or question if they're confused.
and then sending part of it through, and then hearing the other.
Well, we do send out the packet ahead of time, so the council members do have that chance to read it over the weekend before the meeting. That's always the goal.
Or even if we brought it up in a special meeting, some of them issues, you know, inform them a little more, get rid of some of the questions, so that when they do vote on it later, at least they're a little better educated. That might be another option.
Something for like the work
Because
session.
because it does get a little confusing when you go there and you say, okay, we're gonna pass this part and this part, but we're gonna send this part and this part and this part back. And they're looking like, what are we actually doing here? You know, it's better if you bring this stuff up, it's all one whole thing, and either we send the whole thing back, or we introduce it, send the whole thing forward.
Well, this was on us last time. We're the ones that split it. We
Yeah, I
wanted to
know.
pass half of it, leave the other half for this go around until we found the deal. So if that's the case, then we should hang on to it here before we send it forward.
That's right.
So that wasn't.
Once we get this whole thing like with this commission, everything is okay with us, this is the way we want to present it, then we should finally send it.
We
you
can
know?
always, I mean, we can go that route if we wanted to take chunks of a particular chapter, and I'm just gonna use chapter 11 as an example. We can say, okay, I like the way this reads for 1103 point whatever. Let's hold on to that and then combine all of it together for the council at one point in time. It does make it easier for the ordinance revisions as well as the coffers when they update our website. So there is that option if we want to say, yes, I agree with the language on here, and then not necessarily pass anything, but we like this language, let's move to the next chapter D to work on that language, and then we'll compile it all together.
Yeah, because everything we discussed tonight, we could have had this all done and say, yeah, we like this, let's send this whole thing forward and let the council deal with it, and then we're done with it. Like, this is the second time we've opened this up for a public hearing, isn't it? The only time you don't have to do a public hearing is if there's a minor change, you said?
We discussed this, but it wasn't open for a public hearing in terms of the size limitations last time.
Okay.
So, I mean, we discussed it, but we had to publish the public hearing for this meeting.
For this portion.
For this portion,
Okay.
correct. So we can get their input.
Yeah, and I think that's why we pushed the other part on.
Yeah, the guy wanted to get going on his garage, so the impervious soil one, we pushed through, split it in half, instead of sitting on waiting.
Waiting for 2 months or whatever.
Sometimes I agree
Amazing
with
what one person
Jeremy.
in front of you, sitting in front of you will do. You're trying to help one guy out.
Sometimes I guess I agree with Jeremy on that. You just need to hold your course and quit trying to be a nice guy and trying to push something through just to help somebody out. You know, and, I think I'll consider that a whole lot more in the next meeting. But everything looks good here. No more discussion?
Well, what are we passing on to the council? Items 1 and 2?
Is there more in this chapter we're gonna go through?
Well,
If
there's-
we wanna do it all.
The one discussion we had some last time about increasing the height of fences from 4 to 6 feet.
Why don't we wait on this then until we discuss that and then send the whole works through? Or we can say, okay, we covered this as far as the commission, we're done with this. This is our recommendation here, and then we'll add the rest of it, and then we'll push the whole works through.
I'm not aware of any
Does that
particular
make sense? Or?
pressing matter
No.
associated with this.
No? Okay. He doesn't like it.
Well, I guess, you know, from a council's perspective, you know, I guess we as a commission would like to be considerate of the council's needs. But fence heights and building sizes are two different things.
Okay.
I
Well,
mean,
chapter 11 is a wide chapter,
It
so if you're
covers
waiting till chapter
everything.
11 is done,
yeah,
it'll be here for 2 years.
The whole thing, but, you know, we can,
You know,
even if we were to
Yeah.
recommend passing it tonight, we could, I don't know, I think
Everything I know
administratively, we could
winds up
decide
getting
to not
pieced
send it to the
together.
council until next month's stuff is also ready. And send it to the council all at once. So, in that sense, it doesn't really matter when you table it or whether you,
It's gonna cost the same either way.
it's gonna
As
take the
far
same
as-
amount of time to get to the
yeah.
council if you wanted to go to them all at once. But if you want us to go forward to the council right away,
I guess that's up to the commission. What do you wanna do?
Well, what else we got to discuss on the fences?
just the 4 to 6 foot height. In
Oh,
front
for
of
the
your,
front lot?
in front of your.
I thought that was discussed in the last go
We
around.
discussed it, but we never sent it on.
It was, well, same thing, it was a discussion, but we didn't have a public hearing scheduled for it.
And it's not on this one now,
No, so it's gonna.
so we can't do anything with it anyway. So, as far as council today, commission, you wanna pass this on to the council the way it's read, or the way we discussed? Yeah. Why would we not?
Yeah. Scratching
I'm-
the term and
Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the chair, I would make a motion that we pass the and how do we state this? How do, items 1 and 2, item 1 would, where we would offer the sliding scale. I don't know if I need to state this exactly properly. I think we agreed that it would be, that the sliding scale is for a single or combined square footage on those given sized lots. I think that's where we were.
Scratch A pretty much.
Yeah. And of course, to eliminate the requirement for the, what was formerly known as amortization. That sounds like something we have to do, so pass that on to the council for their action. And I don't know if that sounds like does that make, can we make sense of that motion?
Makes sense of it.
If I understand your motion correctly, it's to pass the proposed changes in 11.03B, which is the amortization language. And then there's some renumbering and minor changes that go along with that.
Yes.
And then the changes in 11.03D, which is the accessory building limits, as we talked about, the changes so that there's no limit on a
Yes.
single accessory building. And then changes in 11.04 would not be adopted, or would not be recommended for passing, which is the interim use.
Yes.
Anyone want to second that?
I'll do so.
Motion made and seconded. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. It'll be recommended by this board and sent to city council. Okay, new business. There's no old business. Comprehensive plan update. What do you have?
Not much, just to remind ourselves that we have that public input meeting. We've got that input. Some of our next steps are to just gather some more input from different people. And bringing drafts to you as we go. So.
Was there much of an online response?
The public survey, we got about 70 responses, I think it was.
There hasn't been any more come in since the initial.
If there are, it's just a few. I haven't checked it in a little while now, but I'll check it again. And that was a mix of online submittals and paper submittals.
Plus the council itself has been, your ears are open and people have been talking to them, so each council member will come in with their added information too, so I think you combine it all and you got kind of a feeling what the community wants.
If you remember back to that public input meeting, anybody have any thoughts or comments or things that jump out? It's going to be a while.
There was a couple public safety issues, something to do with the drugs. And I think, even what we're talking about budget earlier, the police department's looking at putting another investigator in there, which in essence would actually be helping out in that area. Community center or convention center, maybe a combined thing, that was a big thing, and our mayor kind of brought that up and has been working on some ideas toward that, talking to people, so I guess we're starting to address some of these issues. Progress is what we need, right?
It's true.
Okay, any more on that? There's an upcoming GTS training session. It's going to be at the Initiative Foundation, September 22nd. That's open to everyone on this Planning and Zoning Commission.
I haven't heard, has anybody signed up for that?
I think I might go to that. I went to one a few years back. It was pretty enlightening,
Let us know when we can get you signed up. Have the ladies in the office.
Yes, I'll call them.
Okay.
I'll tell them.
Can you tell me what it's all about a little bit, too?
Yeah,
Since I first go around.
probably pull up the flyer here too, but it's a training session called, I think it's Beyond the Basics of Zoning. It's something that's put on by a group called Government Training Services. And they do a number of training sessions throughout the year, not all zoning related, but a lot of them are. And they just go over some of the different issues that come up with zoning and give you some insight into how they're supposed to operate at times and what issues you have to decide as planning commission members. And how you make sure you do it illegally and all those different things. So it's been a while since I've been to one personally, but when I have gone to them, it's pretty good. So for the most part.
Our next regular meeting is gonna be Monday, October 10th. At this time, I'll adjourn, make a motion, somebody wants to make a motion?
There's that flyer.
Okay,
So.
when you get lunch,
Oh, that's a reason to go.
probably a bag lunch, but cookies and an apple and a sandwich.
So these are some of the topics. The history of planning and comprehensive planning and zoning and all that. PUDs is a topic that you see a number of here. Environmental review.
You know, the big thing, planning and zoning, I noticed is the state has kind of taken the initiative to go out there and set some of the laws themselves, so that kind of takes it out of our hands. And something like this kind of, they do tell you some of what the state's doing, so.
Yeah, I think every year they try and update it, cover things that are current issues too, but they also cover the sort of timeless things that have always been issues.
Takes it like amortization, it takes it out of our hands and the state set, so we don't have to discuss it very far. When our discussion really doesn't mean a whole lot. So,
It'd be a good thing or a bad thing sometimes when the state steps in.
okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So